Hey everybody, I'm going to talk about a couple of different recording software packages that we sort of looked at using in my school at least, and I use personally OBS. A lot of teachers are using ActiveInspir, and then some folks are using Flashback Express. And I'm just going to go over some of the info about each of them. So let's start with ActiveInspir. I made a movie or a video on ActiveInspir and Flashback Express, like how to set them up and stuff. And I may have forgotten one thing about the Flashback Express one, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But with ActiveInspir, it's pretty simple in that when you have a registered copy anyways, or you get the trial, you can come up here to more tools and do full screen recorder or area recorder. But something I want to go over is the settings here, and this will kind of show you the disadvantage. So if we come to recordings, you can see the maximum frame rate here is 10. As far as I've found, there's not a way to change that. And then with record audio, it will record microphone audio, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't record desktop audio at all. At least that I know of anyways. Maybe it's in there somewhere. So basically if you play a video or something like that and you want it to be recorded, you just got to turn the volume up on your actual device so that the microphone picks up what's coming out of the speakers, and then it gets all of this environmental noise as well. So it's kind of like a little ghetto, but for what this is used for, it's probably fine. So like for math and stuff like that, no problem. I mean, you can just do 2 plus 2 whatever and record it, and 10 frames per second doesn't matter. And video, the audio coming from videos doesn't matter much, and videos being only 10 frames per second probably doesn't matter much because you're probably not going to do it much. So basically ActiveInspir made their screen recording bit work for them in their software, and it does so fine. I wouldn't recommend it though for doing stuff outside of ActiveInspir. There's Flashback Express, which is the other one I want to go over. Real quick, one other downside to ActiveInspir is you can't change the format, and it saves in AVI format. And with AVI, there's like 800 different possible codecs. And so I've had some compatibility issues with editing software after the fact. So like generally it's okay. In things like Caden, Live, Shotcut, OpenShot, it works fine. But if I try to use the built-in video editor that's just built into Windows, I have issues with AVI files anyways. So there are some downsides to ActiveInspir that you should just know, But again, for what it was intended for, it works fine. Then we've got Flashback Express, which is a free one when you get the Express version. The Pro version adds in editing software that's built into it. And the thing is though, you can just use Flashback Express to record and then use one of these editors like OpenShot to do the editing afterwards. And so I don't really see an issue with that. With this one, it will record the PC sounds and it will record the microphone. So you can see it's got the little VU meter thing. When we open up settings here, it's pretty decent really. So, like you can choose a couple of different sound formats and stuff. When you come to record performance, this is one thing I would definitely do. Instead of leaving it on automatic, I would put it on, I want to record moving videos or games. Put the quality to max and put the frames per second to 30 or 60. You could get away with 25 and it would be fine. And really for education, you shouldn't need 60, 30 should be more than enough. And that'll play YouTube videos and stuff like that without a problem. It does have some other nice things like keystroke recording, where it'll capture the keystrokes, what you're typing. So it's got some nice features. The thing I don't like about it personally is it doesn't have quite all of the options that I would like. And when you're finished, what you've created is a flashback project, not an actual video. And then what you've got to do is open up that project in the Flashback player, which if it opens up here, I'll tell you about, I'll show you. Basically, the player is used to export video. This is their ad for the Pro version. But you would put it in, and then you can do a couple of little things, and you can do like volume leveling and stuff. But this player is really made so that you'll buy their Pro version and get the editing software for the player. If you've got the free version though, you still need to use it to do your export functions. Now this can export to AVI, MP4 or WMV, which is nice. You can go directly to MP4. And there are a few options in here, but it's an extra unnecessary step. And that's sort of one of the reasons why I don't like Flashback as much as OBS. But it's pretty good and it's pretty simple to set up. I mean, the settings aren't too confusing or anything. Then we've got OBS, which OBS I personally like quite a bit. It's used by a lot of YouTubers and stuff, and it's literally what I'm using to record this right now. But I can show you some of the settings, I think, while it's recording. So the issue with this is there's a lot of settings, and it can be confusing to a new user. You can ignore stream altogether if you're just doing desktop recordings. For output, I would set it to MP4. There are other options. By default, I think it does either MKV or FLV, depending on what system you're on. You can use the X264 encoder and possibly 265. So there are some more, some more professional level options in this one. Like you can choose a different audio bitrate. For audio, you can have multiple inputs, multiple mics, multiple desktop audio sources. I've got default and default because I'm using basically the microphone from the webcam and the default desktop audio. It's got, you can have a different base resolution from the scaled resolution, and that gets kind of funky sometimes because you can end up having the desktop actually be out of, in other words, off of the screen, or have it not take up the full screen, which if you know what you're doing, that's okay. And then you can choose different FPS values. There's a ton of hotkeys that are assignable in here, which I like. So you can, mute your webcam and stuff like that with hotkeys, and I use it for pause and play, and then for hiding and showing this camera. So like right now, this webcam should be hidden. Now it's shown, hidden, shown. So I like that I can just do a quick hotkey for that. And then it's got like different renderers and stuff as well. And so these things would be different depending on what hardware you've got. And so that's where this is sort of kind of a step up from Flashback Express, and it's completely free. There's no limitations to it. And it also records directly to MP4, so you don't have to do that extra export step. And then once you've got an MP4, you can edit it from there. The other thing I like is I like to be able to add these things. So these are things that I would use for my school, and we'll see when I look at the recording, but it should have added a banner along the top next to my video here. And I can just turn those on and off quickly and set it up with different things as well. So like I can add a source that is, another image, let's say, and we're just gonna call this trial, okay, browse, let's see. I'm just going to find something random here. We'll put this image in there. This is from a car accident that I had. So, okay. And then you can size it to the way you want and make it fit the screen the way that you want. And so you can play around with stuff like that, which I really like about this. I'm going to get rid of that now because I definitely don't need it. Yeah, I'm sure. So it's got some extra things and some more professional things, but it's also sort of geared towards YouTube streaming. And so it does recording perfectly fine, but that's where you'll see this used often is with YouTube streaming. It may be a bit confusing with those extra options, but for somebody who's got a little bit of technical savvy, set it up, and for that matter, you can set it up for another person, and then, they can use it successfully from there. One of the issues with a lot of the screen recording software is you'll get one of two things. You'll get either watermarks on your videos, which for most schools, I mean, it doesn't look good anyways. And that's how they get you to buy the pro version. Or you'll get time limitations, where it will record your desktop, but only for 5 minutes, let's say, or 10 minutes. And that's just not doable if you're trying to record a 30-minute lesson. For Linux, there's one called Kazam, which is super easy. It's open source. You can I use Ubuntu on Linux, and you can get it right from the Ubuntu software repositories. It doesn't have this extra stuff. You would have to add those things into during the editing step or in the post-processing step. But it's super simple and totally free. Like, it's in the Ubuntu repositories for Ubuntu, which I use, and I'm sure you can get it for the others, for Arch and Red Hat and whatever. And then doing things like, one of the nice things with ActiveInspir is it's got the whiteboard just built into it. I mean, it's really whiteboard software, right? So if this ever opens up, it's a little slow to open. So like, it's got the whiteboard functions just built right in, and that's all good and well. But honestly, if you need a whiteboard, just open up Paint or Paint.net, or if you have GIMP or whatever, just open up one of those, and there you go. There's your whiteboard. So I don't personally care for ActiveInspir much when there are just so many other options, and it's kind of limiting. Again, it's good for having in the classroom because it's got some extra features for the classroom, but when you're doing recordings, it's just a little, I don't know, there are some drawbacks to it. So yeah, I personally use OBS, which OBS is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux, and it's really similar. The settings are going to vary a little bit because, clearly they're different operating systems, so they have a different set of built-in codecs, and they just work differently. They identify hardware a little bit differently and stuff. What else? Yeah, the other issue comes down to there's frames per second cost, which OBS and Flashback Express are free, but ActiveInspir is one you've got to either pay for or get the trial. And then there's really the file size, which file size is more dependent on what file type you're using, resolution, frames per second. So like, if you're creating an MPEG-4 that's 1080p in OBS versus an MPEG-4 that's 1080p in Flashback Express, and they're both at 30 frames per second, probably going to be about the same file size. If you use AVI, it's going to be a different file size because it's a different codec. The compression algorithm is different, and so that can be an issue. For school recordings, I always looked at it one of two ways. Either your school's got a server set up that they're sharing it with, or you're sharing it on Google Classroom, in which case, in either case, size isn't a huge concern, in my opinion at least, unless your school puts a limitation on you to put it onto their own servers. But for Google Drive and Google Classroom, if you're sharing them that way, that shouldn't be a concern. And two, if you're uploading these to YouTube, file size shouldn't really matter. The difference is going to be how long it takes to do the upload, and then what the quality is on the user end. What the quality is for the person who sees it. So larger file sizes, as long as you've got the time to upload it, who cares? Is sort of my opinion. And there's a bunch of editing software that's available. I think I've talked about these ones before. I use OpenShot at the moment. Windows has their built-in video editor. But if you've got MPEG-4, you can use any of those plus Windows. If you've got AVI, you can still use OpenShot. And I'm sure Kdenlive and Shotcut, though I haven't used them much. I kind of like OpenShot so far. So as for the editing features, I wouldn't pay for Flashback Pro, and I wouldn't worry about the fact that you don't have it in OBS or in ActiveInspir. For editing, just use a separate program. And since there are plenty of free ones, there's really no reason to even worry about that, to consider that at this point. As for doing the recording, I would say OBS if you've got the technical know-how and can work through the settings and don't mind taking your time figuring some stuff out. Flashback Express is a little bit easier, so use that one if it suits your needs. ActiveInspir I would really only use if you're doing stuff just on the whiteboard, and really that's it. I mean, I wouldn't use it for PowerPoints, videos, anything else, because in my opinion it just doesn't have the features that are needed. So anyways, that about wraps it up. Just wanted to give you a quick comparison of the ones that are that my school uses basically, and show you that there are free options without watermarks, without time limitations. You just got to figure out how they work, basically. That's the tough part, is figuring out the settings and stuff. So anyways, hope this helps somebody. Have a great day.